The Homeric poems have been the object of study for over 2.5 millennia. We know, for example, that Athenian boys were made to learn the poems and explain difficult Homeric words in the 5th century BCE. In the Library of Alexandria, in the 3rd and 2nd centuries BCE, impressive scholars collected earlier texts of Homer, edited them, and wrote extensive commentaries. Summaries of their notes, known as scholia, made their way into the margins of Byzantine manuscripts. From Byzantium, the manuscripts travelled to Italy, as has already emerged, and there the poems were first printed and published. Current research on Homer, including that presented in this book, draws from this long history of scholarship. The scholia, in particular, remain a crucial resource in Homeric studies, and yet, impressive as this learned tradition is, it does not quite explain the significance of Homer through the centuries. Many people who never studied or even read the Iliad or the Odyssey contributed to ensuring the survival and success of those two poems. Dante, for example, had no access to ancient Greek epic, yet described a meeting with Homer in the first circle of hell, and inspired Petrarch in his own quest to import and read a copy of the Iliad. Derek Walcott, whose epic poem Omeros is one of the most significant contemporary engagements with Homer, claims never to have read the Iliad or the Odyssey. The last chapter in this book focuses on one key episode, Odysseus's descent into the underworld, and shows how later poets, from Dante to Walcott, saw this descent as a means of reaching into the past and of conversing with Homer directly, as if with a living poet. Chapter 1. Looking for Homer. The first extant sources that mention Homer by name date to the 6th century BCE. From them, we can establish that the Greeks considered him an outstanding and ancient poet, but that they knew nothing certain about him. Even the name, Homer, was disputed. Most authors seemed to use it in a straightforward manner, but some insisted that it was only a nickname which meant blind or hostage, and referred to a traumatic episode in the poet's life. The possible meanings of the name Homer are still debated. It is not a standard Greek personal name, but it is not obviously made up either. The poet's birthplace was another subject of speculation in antiquity. The oldest traditions mentioned various places in Ionia, that is to say western Turkey and the nearby islands, claiming that Homer hailed from Chios, Smyrna, or Aeolian Syme. Some accounts also mentioned Athens, Argos, Rhodes, and Salamis. It was always possible to add to those 7 traditional birthplaces of Homer. In a game of one-upmanship, some ancient Greek scholars even claimed that Homer was an Egyptian or an early Roman, on the grounds that the heroic practices he described resembled those of foreign people. Lucian, writing in the 2nd century CE, made fun of this game, claiming that he had actually travelled to the island of the Blessed, met Homer in person, and established once and for all that he hailed from Babylon. Just as there was no agreement about Homer's life, so there were doubts about which poems, exactly, he had composed. The authenticity of the Iliad was never questioned, but that of the Odyssey sometimes was, and a host of other epic poems, now surviving only in fragments and plot summaries, were sometimes attributed to him, as were several Homeric hymns to the gods. In general, it seems that definitions of Homer's oeuvre became gradually more narrow in the course of time. In the 6th and early 5th century BCE, Greek authors treated Homer as the author of whole epic sagas, rather than just 2 specific poems. For example, when the playwright Aeschylus, circa 525 to 456 BCE, claimed that his tragedies were slices from the banquet of Homer, he must have had in mind a whole cycle of poems concerning the Trojan War, as well as another cycle dealing with Oedipus, his children, and the war they fought over Thebes.